Welcome to the New Hampshire Journal podcast. I'm your host, Michael Graham, managing editor at NHJournal.com. We've got a terrific pod lined up for you, starting with Democratic candidate in the 1st Congressional District, Christian Urrutia, who names names. And speaking of names, I'm glad he joined us because I finally learned how to pronounce his last name. I've been mispronouncing it for weeks. And the same with my friend, Alicia Preston Xanthopulos, the notorious APX. I've been mispronouncing her first name. So I learned a lot on this podcast, and I hope you will too. Thank you so much, by the way, for the many of you who participated in the Valentine's Day giveaway. Lucky winners of those Fiddlehead cigars from Dunbarton Tobacco right here in New Hampshire, and the gift certificates that Tom Boucher was kind enough to provide us over at the Copper Door. Thank you so much for becoming members. We're going to find more and more ways to thank and reward you for being members of New Hampshire Journal by sponsoring the newsletter, whether it's $4.99 a month or you do the $50 annual membership. Either way, thank you. It really counts. We also have a very special sponsor for this edition of the New Hampshire Journal podcast. It's called Witness to War. It's a brand new book by one of our Inside Sources authors, J. Mark Powell. You may read our Holy Cow histories that you see. We have a brand new book from Stackpole Books. And I think you're going to love it. I did. And full disclosure here, I've known Powell for years. We're very good friends. So the story of the book is simple. He's a lifelong Civil War buff. He's written a Civil War novel. He's a historian. And he's been collecting letters from the Civil War, the actual letters themselves, for years. And he noticed a couple years ago that he had a letter from almost every major Civil War battle. And so what he did is he went out on the market, because obviously you can buy historical documents and antiquities, whatever. And he bought letters for the battles he didn't have. And then he put together this book by letting the people who were in the battles, who wrote these letters back home to places like New Hampshire. There are several New Hampshire letters in this book. They tell the story of, here's what happened to me when Fort Sumter was fired on. Here's what happened to me in Vicksburg. It's the first person account from hundreds of people who wrote these letters live from on the ground, most of them soldiers, some of them family members, so you have lovers, friends. It's an amazing way to read the story of the Civil War. And like I said, it features letters from members of New Hampshire units who played key roles in battles, including Gettysburg. This book is so easy to get. It is on Amazon.com. It's called Witness to War by J. Mark Powell. And it's a great book, and we're delighted to have Stackpole Books and Witness to War sponsor this edition of the New Hampshire Journal podcast. And it's time to talk a little politics. When you think rank punditry, Patrick Hynes of Novus Marketing puts the rank in rank punditry, and he's here to do it today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And yes, nothing is more rank than me.
I wish that people could see what's on the grease board, the whiteboard behind you. I saw before you did your screen thing, I saw, what did that say? Call White House 2 p.m. Is that?
Yes, it says call Caroline back.
Caroline, call. Yes, very
urgent.
Yes, very wired. Patrick Hynes, very wired in the universe of politics. So I want to ask you a big picture question as a longtime Republican guy working in New Hampshire. How would you rank Governor Ayotte's strength as an incumbent headed into her first reelection at this point, compared to governors you've worked for in the past, campaigns you've worked on in the past? Where would you put her?
I would probably say a solid B plus. And the reason it's as low as it is because...
You think that's low?
I think it's low. Obviously, she's done a good job of raising money.
I'm not talking about if she's been a good governor. There are plenty of people who've done good things who don't get reelected. I'm talking about from a political, where she is with the electorate looking ahead. Where would you put her at compared to governors in the past?
Well, again, B plus. She got good poll numbers. She's got good money in the bank. She's got issues going in her direction. The thing she's up against is environment and just the general purpleness of the state, which it's only getting more purple. And so, she's got some baked into the cake issues that she's going to have to overcome, issues like just that buttload of Democrats out there. But she's doing what she needs to do to get reelected.
So when people say, well, I don't know what they see the big deal is, Chris Sununu won re-election in 2020 when Joe Biden was killing it here, but he in a massive blowout. And I say to people, Kelly Ayotte is not Chris Sununu. Number one, do you agree? And number two, what does that sentence mean to people who follow politics?
The sentence, Kelly Ayotte is
Gilead
not
is
Chris
not
Sununu.
Chris Sununu.
Well, that assumes that Chris Sununu was just, it's sort of this almost Bill Clinton like figure, where it's just Teflon and I guess that was kind of true. I mean, people just really liked him, but I think people really like Kelly Ayotte too. I think the vast majority of Granite Staters want this out of their governor: someone who is mature and isn't going to do anything crazy, and I can rest my head on my pillow at
Right.
night without anything weird happening. And when you start getting, introducing the woke politics, you start getting people freaked out. If you start introducing a bunch of right-wing ideas, even though I might personally like them, it starts freaking people out.
Right.
They want a steady hand, and that's what they're looking for.
So the couple of things I say is one is Chris Sununu got to be governor during COVID, and that highlight, doing a press conference every single day, being in a moment of crisis. And, now people are upset about decisions that he made at the time. And we just had the fight with now Supreme Court Justice Dan Will, because he was the Solicitor General defending his decisions. But at the time, man, people just sucked up that leadership. They sucked up his clarity of vision. We had compared to other states, a good outcome in New Hampshire, for COVID. And so he had that thing that just doesn't, you can't make that happen. That's history.
Right.
But then he also has the fact that he had the cachet and name behind it. So you were able to take a pre-existing brand that people kind of liked,
of course,
Sununu's they'd elected, and then you got to amp it up. And so you put those two things together. It's not an insult to Kelly Ayotte or to, Cindy Warmington or, Declan McEachern that you're no Chris Sununu. And then there's one other thing, and I want to ask you really about this. My premise is that the window of swing voters continues to narrow. People are becoming more partisan, hardcore Republican and Democrat. And so the days of a Republican voter being able to get the 35% approval that Sununu got there for a while are just over. That you just, to use the new post-Trump metric, it's like converting Fahrenheit and Celsius. A pre-Trump 10-point approval is a post-Trump 4-point approval.
I agree completely. I think that, yes, on the last name. I mean, he's got a legacy of goodwill built into the electorate. His father and his brother and he all did great work for many, many years, and earned a lot of trust. Also, there's just a ceiling on how popular a governor can be, or any politician, frankly. I mean, even if you look at like Jean Shaheen's polling numbers, and she's been a mainstay in New Hampshire politics since she was a state senator in the 90s. And she's always won, except for the one time against Johnny Sununu.
Right.
And I think the vast majority of people in the Granite State feel like they have a good vibe about her, a good feeling about her. She's at like 55, 56%. These are not astronomical numbers. Nope. They're good. They're really good. But I agree. The day of steep 2% job approval rating, just those are gone.
Yeah, you're not going to see another Ronald Reagan style 49-1 presidential race. Not going to happen. It's just a different world. So when you say New Hampshire's getting more purple, do you mean it's going from blue and getting redder to be purple? Or are you saying that it's red and going bluer to be purple?
So more of a zigzag. So I've had this conversation with Ross Berry. So Ross Berry corrected me recently, a few weeks ago, because I keep thinking of when we were a red state,
right?
Maybe not on the presidential ballot, but in state, we had Republicans in the federal delegation, we had Republican control of the legislature, and a succession of Republican governors, and then that all went away, and we started getting a bunch of Democratic governors. The Democrats were alternately winning control of the legislature or a branch of the legislature. Right. And we kept, we just lose all the presidential races. And so I just kept seeing it as the state turning from red to blue.
Right.
And, he's got a narrower window because he moved here in 2010 or something. And so he sees, so he came to a red state, or excuse me, a blue state that is now getting more blue, particularly at the legislative level and at the gubernatorial level. So it's kind of zigzagged in some ways over the past 4 years.
And so what's the growth? Like if you were, let's say that you were a completely neutral person, you just wanted to be in politics. You want to
Yep.
get elected governor one day. Which team would you pick that, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you'd say that's, I'm riding the wave. I'm not fighting the wave.
Republican.
Really?
And yeah, and the reason for that is that the bench is so much stronger, and the issues are still going to be on their side. Ultimately, if you're a pro-freedom, pro-prosperity, lower taxes, lower spending, you're going to have the better arguments. And the bench is better. So, whatever one thinks of the leadership in the New Hampshire House, they're strong.
But the bench is
they're
short.
good
But the bench is short term. Look, I'm saying about like the direction of the state of the population, whether it's demographics or whether it's ideas, whatever. You think the future of the state? For a while, it was getting bluer and bluer, and then
Yep.
like you said, turn. Now you're seeing at least at the state level red. You think
Yep.
that red is the future, the color of the future?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Yep. For the reasons that I stated. One, the numbers are better. So not just in the legislature in terms of like quality people who are Republicans, but also registrations have gone our way. So there's a genuine like people voting with their feet thing happening. We have better down ballot leaders. So I would take a Jay Rouet over whoever the mayor of Lebanon is. I don't even know, but like I would take that guy over any of those other down ballot guys if they were to run for a statewide seat down in the future. I would take Jay Rouet over Declan McEachern any day of the week. And I think the vast majority of people in Granite State would.
You're talking so specific. Good candidates can come and go. You can't ride the candidates. There's, the candidates are riding the demographics. So here's my theory. My theory is, as that great political philosopher W.C. Fields said, I never vote for anyone. I always vote against. That New Hampshire is the against enclave of the Northeast. And that when you live in New York and you see the craziness, and you've got Mondami in the city, and you got Hochul in Albany, you live in Massachusetts, and you're like, holy moly, what are these idiots doing? They can't stay this stupid, and they keep staying stupid or getting stupider. And they're going to make what's her face, the bald lady, a U.S. senator from Massachusetts, the supervillain. What's her name? The supervillain. I forget her name. Anyway, what I mean. And then Maine,
Presley.
same thing. Yeah, Presley, Ayanna Presley. In Maine, they're raising taxes and nominating progressives with Hitler tattoos. And at a certain point, you just go, you know what? I don't know that I like everything in New Hampshire. I just hate everything else so bad. I'm going to vote against them, and that leaves me by default here. And so I think we are going to see New Hampshire continue to grow by default and get redder by default.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I absolutely agree that dynamic is part of the calculation that I just made. Right. But I think what you're seeing in real time is more and more people registering as either Republican or Independent, and fewer registering as Democrat. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Right. Most people are undeclared anyway. But it gives you some level of indicator, like the dial on a focus group.
Okay, so about how many campaigns? I've worked on I figured up one time, I've worked on like 60 campaigns.
Yeah.
About how many campaigns have you worked on?
Well, if you count all the kind of the multi-state projects that I work for in the committees.
No, just political candidates, like people running for
political
office.
Candidates. I would say probably 20.
Okay, so have you ever seen a situation where there's an open nomination by a party for governor, and there's an obvious choice for the person, the nomination, who keeps leaking to the press for 3 months that she's going to be the nominee, and then doesn't get in the race? Have you ever seen anything like the Cindy Warmington scenario?
No, it's very strange to me. It's very peculiar in the sense that she seems to be talking to a pair of reporters. and your campaign has to be bigger than that, even if you're a Democrat.
You think so?
And
don't listen to him, Cindy. All you need to do is talk.
Yeah. So I think obviously I think she's going to run. She's talked too much about it. I mean, or she's just responding to the Seacoast news article about Mayor McEachern in Portsmouth, and she just wants to stay in the story. But why would you stay in the story?
So when Kevin Lansky, the union leader, and what's his name at the Boston Globe posted their sources tell us that she's running, I retweeted that with a message, headlines from November, December, and January, because literally they've posted the exact same tweet repeatedly over the past 3 months, and then nothing happens. My question is,
go ahead. Just go ahead and name the source. It's Cindy Warmington.
Of course it is. But my point is, what's the benefit of not? I mean, I don't understand. No one can explain to me how this is a win. I thought it was a really funny line from John Kuiper, who, by the way, very talented erotic poet. I just want to say that. But he pointed out in an interview, it's not like Warmington's going to sneak up on Kelly. Aha! She's not lying in wait. There's no ambush involved. So why not just announce? I was talking to a very smart person who's kind of a squishy middle political operative. And the argument was, well, the early months don't matter anyway. Don't waste your time. And I'm like, yeah, but it keeps other people from running.
Correct.
Because if I'm Declan McEachern or State Senator Donovan Fenton, or even someone you and I have talked, some business guy, the yogurt guy, and I'm just sitting there, you get to March, you're like, well, shoot, okay, I'll run. And then all of a sudden she's in a primary. That makes no sense. I don't understand. I'm not saying she's wrong. She may have a brilliant strategy and she may crush Ayotte beneath her boots. I don't know. I just don't. Right now, it just looks like someone who doesn't want to run, trying to talk herself into running, which is not projecting strength for November.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't see this as a serious rollout. Maybe it end up being a serious campaign, but it's not a serious rollout.
Yeah, and I agree that, like, once you get in, you start campaigning, who's going to remember how it started? But, this is what's fascinating to me. You could see a situation where Declan McEachern doesn't want to run, but the people around him who are begging him to run go, look, she's never going to get in, and he gets in, and then she gets in, and suddenly they have a primary, which is what neither want. Which is why my position right now is, and this is a message to everybody thinking about running for governor as a Democrat, not named John Kuiper, first one in. Because I guarantee you, if McEachern announced tomorrow, Cindy Warmington would endorse him and say, you know what, we don't want a primary. We've got to be unified. Ayotte's too bad. Blah, 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 blah.
I totally agree with that assessment. I think if the two of them ran in a primary, she would win in a walk. But I don't think it's going to come to that.
She barely wants to run at all. Why is she going to run in the primary?
Well, exactly. I mean, but ultimately, it does seem like two people who don't want to run. They want to be wanted to run, and they don't want to do the work. And I've worked for campaigns like that, so I know full well how miserable that can be. But it's just, I don't think either one of them is taking a serious approach. I read the Seacoast online story about McEachern, and I could not have been less impressed with his early messaging.
And ladies and gentlemen, the fact is that Patrick Hynes and I were just stalling because we were waiting for the one and only, the notorious APX, Alicia Preston Xanthopulos, to join us here on the New Hampshire Journal Political Roundtable. Welcome. So glad to have you.
So glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, I know you were in deep consultations with the White House and the Senate and the UN as part of your regular job, Alicia. So we appreciate it. Your time. No?
Yeah. I'm very busy with all of that. Yes.
So we were talking about the Cindy Warmington. Will she, won't she? What the heck's going on? You're out on the Seacoast. You've got Declan McEachern right there in the background. So a couple questions for you. Is this just the latest round of headlines where, the union leader says, oh, she's definitely running. And then a month goes by and they go, oh, she's definitely, or is there something happening? And secondly, tell us what non-Seacoasters should know about Mayor McEachern.
So as for whether she's running, I have friends who are members of the Democratic Party who have been receiving in the last 48 hours calls.
Okay. Not
the calls of the should I run, the calls that I'm in.
Okay.
From Cindy Warmington. So, I mean, as recently as yesterday, I'm told that she's in and she's going to do this. I guess we'll see. Anyone can change his or her mind. I don't know. But that's the latest information I have. As for McEachern, I mean, it's a little odd because like I live in Hampton, he's Portsmouth, and everyone thinks because we're 6 miles away
Right.
that we all know what's going on. And that's just not the case. He's not someone who has done anything to spread himself out.
Mhm.
He just hasn't. So I have no idea what his intentions are. I would think if Warmington gets in, she probably clears the field.
Yeah, we were just discussing. I think whoever gets in first is it, because they barely want to run as it is. They're not going to have a primary. Let me ask you about and I want to both of you about this, because you both obviously live in the laps of luxury. That's why you have your backgrounds. You don't want people seeing the Picassos and the the Monets on your wall. They don't want to see the silver china. Exactly. So Patrick lives on Patrick's an affluent lake dweller. He's up there with the lake people and the big mansions where they discuss international monetary policy.
Oh yeah, Laconia. It's
Alicia is down in the beautiful Seacoast with the rich. Is there an anti-Seacoast bias? You've only had one Portsmouth mayor ever elected governor in the modern political era, post-Civil War era in New Hampshire. Is that coincidental, Alicia?
I think, we talk about the Seacoast of New Hampshire as though it's a thing.
Right.
I think we've got 15 miles of it. So I don't think there's an anti or pro Seacoast. I think it's just really tiny. There's only so much of us to be had. So I'm not sure it's a thing. We like to make it a thing. I like to be like, I live on the Seacoast. But then there's people who are like, oh, I live in Rochester. I'm on the Seacoast. No, you're not, bro. No, you're not.
And that's my point, Patrick Hynes, up on the lakes.
Yeah.
Which is that, I say the Seacoast. It's kind of like the South Carolina has the Charleston problem. It's hard to win statewide if you're from Charleston because everyone hates Charleston and Charleston hates everyone else. And so it's a great relationship. Yeah. Is there kind of a, hoity-toity, hanging out with APX down in your rolls kind of thing?
Well, I don't think it's the Seacoast, but I definitely think that there's an anti-Portsmouth sentiment.
Okay.
I think people like Portsmouth. It's a fun town to go to.
I love Portsmouth. It's great.
But it's not a place where, but that the people in Portsmouth are different from Granite Staters. Mm-hmm. And, it's the most expensive city in the state at a time when we're in this affordability crisis.
Right.
So we're not going to have, we're not going to look kindly on a guy whose the median home in Portsmouth is $800,000. It's $1 million, and he's saying that he's going to work on housing affordability. Like it just sort of makes you roll your eyes at the Portsmouth people.
Is that legit?
My
APX?
office is in Portsmouth.
I agree. I mean, I like to visit Portsmouth for dinner, but I got a kid in college, so I do it once a year. I mean, that's just
So let me ask you the question that's been puzzling me, which is if I'm the Democratic Party and I've got these really strong, likely candidates at the federal level, do I even want to have a fight at the state level? Do I want to get in a tussle and give Republicans a reason to turn out and rescue or not rescue, but support Kelly Ayotte? Ayotte's relatively popular. Don't I just want to leave it to Kuiper? Why not leave it to Kuiper?
Yes.
What do you think, APX?
I agree with you. I mean, I do not think a Portsmouth-centric candidate is going to have a big chance against Kelly Ayotte, for instance. She is very popular. She's a good governor. As a Republican, I may be biased, but subjectively, she's done a good job. And you have to come up with a reason to fire her. And what is a candidate from Portsmouth going to say? We do have a housing crisis in New Hampshire. What's your message, candidate from Portsmouth? I just don't see it. Now, on a federal level, we've got, the Stephanie Shaheens in the world. They can do very well. It's a different dynamic. It's a different voting block. It's a different voting message.
I thought it was interesting. Just before we got together, I interviewed Christian Urrutia, one of the Democrats in the 1st Congressional District primary, and he called out Stephanie Shaheen by name and basically said, look, the fact that undecided is by far and away the number one choice, even though she has 100% last name ID, he thinks that it's wide open, that people want bold. Patrick Hynes, I've been watching Democrats in New Hampshire now, for about 7 years-ish. Not seeing a lot of bold. And I've seen that they've done just fine without
Yeah.
being bold.
So
Is bold really a winning strategy for Democrats in New Hampshire?
I'm glad that Christian Urrutia is finding a path to victory for himself.
Right.
And he might be a perfectly wonderful guy. This race is not wide open. Um, until and unless something happens, Stephanie Shaheen is going to win both the Democratic nomination and, in my opinion, the seat. Now, events can change things, but it takes a tremendous amount of money to beat somebody with a last name that has been a mainstay in New Hampshire politics for 45 years.
So APX, you don't think that in a moment where people are marching the streets and the rumor of an ICE facility in Merrimack can bring thousands of people out, that the Stephanie Shaheen strategy of just keep your head down and send out photos of my mother and my puppy, you don't think that a real progressive firebrand could catch fire, kind of like Shea Porter back in 2006?
No, I do not.
No.
And,
Okay.
and as someone with a 10-month-old puppy, I can tell you those are winning pictures. Winning pictures. I follow them.
I'm more impressed
Now,
with an impossibly handsome son who's like a Harvard baseball player or something. I'm like, man.
Isn't he going to like Notre Dame or something like that?
Oh, I guess. I don't know. I was impressed. He's got dealt a pretty good hand in life.
He's doing pretty well. He was able to max out.
Don't think I haven't thought of like, let's get these two together for coffee. Like,
look, you got to be impressed by a guy who, while he was still in prep school, was maxing out to his mom's campaign. I mean,
I didn't have that kind of money when I was
spending
in
my money on gas and cheap beer when I was in high school.
Natural light.
I know that's a nice thing. So the U.S. Senate race on the Republican side, Johnny Sununu continues to wrap up the establishment vote. Scott Brown's argument is kind of similar to the Urrutia argument in the sense that, come on, people want a fighter and they want to swing. And former Senator Sununu, smart guy, sharp guy, great, but not the kind of guy you'd send into a political brawl. What's the mood of the Republican electorate, APX?
I don't know. My mood is I'm tired already of the pissing match. When you saw, and I'll call his name out, I did it publicly on social media, the Matt Mowers of the world, who are people who ran for office, significant office, did not succeed, are Republican leaders, start getting in the mud between these two candidates. I was disgusted by it. I don't like it. Johnny Sununu and Scott Brown are both very solid Republican candidates. Either one would be excellent at the job. We can all choose which one we think has the best chance in general or think should win. But knock it off, guys. Stop the name calling. Stop the nonsense. You're not Pam Bondi yesterday in front of the hearing. Knock it off.
So you shouldn't say that, because Patrick Hynes has a huge Pat Bondi photo, a poster on his wall. It's kind of like the Farrah Fawcett poster from back in the 70s. He's a huge fan.
Except she's in a pantsuit.
So what's the mood of the Republican electorate, Patrick Hynes?
The mood of the Republican electorate is to vote, as it has been for the past 10 years, to vote for the candidate that Donald Trump endorses. And whatever damage a Trump endorsement might cause you in the general election, it's absolute pure gold in a primary, and it's all that's going to matter.
And the question that Patrick Hynes and I were discussing earlier, APX, was he says the state is getting more red, that we're on a red trajectory, and that the future is redder. When you look out after your years of working on campaigns and doing comms, do you see the future of New Hampshire 10 years from now more red or more blue? And obviously not all the way, but like, in this purple lane, are we going to be in the red lane of purple or the blue lane of purple in the next 10 years?
No, and I don't think that's based on opinions of people. I think that's based simply on the demographics of who's moving here. I mean, there was a report out 2 weeks ago, I think, that 45,000 more people moved into the state than moved out. Right. And they're coming predominantly from New York and Massachusetts. And that's going to make the state more purple or blue, however you want to look at it.
Sure.
So I love Mr. Patrick Hynes. I just don't.
But but the argument is that once you've lived in the mess that is Massachusetts, you don't want to come up here and don't mess it up. Or don't mess it up. So no, not
A great campaign slogan. I loved Kelly Ayotte's campaign slogan for it. Unfortunately, as someone who lives in one of the target areas that all people from Massachusetts are coming to, I can tell you it's not true. They do come here because they don't want the high taxes. They don't want all the nonsense they get in Massachusetts. And then they come here and go, well, why don't I have all the crazy services I had in Massachusetts? It's just a silly reality, but that's what they do.
Right. One last question for you, and this is the question I've been asking people for weeks now, which is, when you look at November, do you think it's going to be more like 2018, which was a good cycle for Democrats? The New Hampshire Democrats won the House and Senate here in Concord. Governor Sununu held on in his first term. Or is it going to be more like 2006, the kind of bloodbath that washes away popular incumbents like Bradley, Jeb Bradley, et cetera? And ladies first, APX.
As someone who was working for Jeb Bradley in 2006 and still holds the pain of that moment, I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I really do. I think it's going to be a bloodbath because this administration cannot stop, and they need to stop. There cannot be chaos every day. It's not even about policy anymore. It's about chaos, and people are going to push back against chaos.
Do you remember when during the 2006 cycle you knew this was going to be ugly? At what point you hit that? Like I was working a congressional race in Chicago in 1996 in my misspent youth. And, Clinton was running for re-election. Not only that, they literally held the DNC that year in our district.
Yeah.
And so I knew, but we hit the summer and okay, there's not gonna be a miracle. There's something that we were just gonna get blotted. When did you know that 2006 was gonna be 2006?
Maybe I was stupid that night. I was working with George Pataki, who was then the governor of New York. He was still governor of New York at the time. And I was in New York, and we had this board of all these races that his political action committee had been supporting and following. And I just kept checking my BlackBerry, I think it was at the time.
Wow.
And getting alerts from people in New York and going, oh, crap, so-and-so lost. Oh, no, we lost such and such. Oh, no, Jeb Bradley lost. It was just like...
So you didn't see it coming?
I didn't see it coming. No.
Wow. Patrick Hynes, 2018 or 2006 for Republicans?
I mean, it's I reject the premise of the question, but 2018, if I had to answer it.
I don't understand how would you ask the question?
Well, we're going to keep the U.S. Senate. We're going to lose the U.S. House. We're going to win the governor's race. We're probably going to, it's going to be a mixed bag that's largely pro-Democrat. That largely leans.
So that's 2018. That's
more 2018 than anything else. But we're not going to lose both chambers of the United States Congress.
Well, listen, I really appreciate both of you doing this, and I appreciate so much that I'm going to work in my ad while we do this. I'm going to send you each a copy of this brand new book from one of our Inside Sources writers, J. Mark Powell, called Witness to War.
Oh, I love it.
He's a Civil War novelist and historian, and he realized about 2 years ago that he had a letter from a soldier or a mother or a nurse or somebody in every major battle except for a handful. He actually, because he collects the actual letters. So he has the thing. So he went out and found the battles he didn't have, and he bought letters from them. And this book is the entire Civil War from Fort Sumter to Appomattox in the letters of the people from each battle through the order of the war. It's really good. It just came out this week. It's been getting great reviews, and I'm going to give each of you a copy for being our suckers who participated in the Hampshire Journal, and urge everyone. It's on Amazon.com. Witness to War, J. Mark Powell. The fact that he was my roommate in college and my best man is totally aside from that. No, it really is. It really is a great book, and we're proud to support it at NHJournal, and proud to have you guys on the show. Hynes, you didn't embarrass yourself nearly as much as I thought you would. APX, you didn't embarrass yourself nearly enough. That's where we are. Thank you so much, guys. Gals, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.